So happy Monday, everyone. And as promised last week, we are going to be deloading on the barbell side. And so today's training, we did overhead press and squats. Overhead press was a bit over half of what we maxed at last week. And squats was right around, no, it was a bit over half as well, if I'm thinking through the math. Yeah. So both built up to a set of 5, significantly lighter than last week, although a bit over half. You do the math. I've posted them all. While we're in a deload phase, it's also a great opportunity to start to add some other working capacity with some of the training exercises where you can push it a little more without impacting your ability to recover to do the heavier sets again in a couple days. I did talk about some new implements that were going to be coming. So we have here a new medicine ball, which is 40 pounds. And right here we have a new kettlebell, which is 100 pounds. And for some reason, I thought it was going to be more than 100 pounds. I'd obviously forgotten. But I mean, 100 pounds is still the heaviest kettlebell I've ever swung. So it's a good single to kind of work from. And we'll see if we go heavier. It'll all depend. We're going to be also looking at how you can break up your day with different periods of activity, and the movement pattern we're going to be looking at is within the Taikyoku Kuzushi. It is the Ikkyoku movement, and it's the first theme, and it's Ikkyo Undo, which is the first teaching within the first theme. And so Ikkyo, it also exists in Aikido in a slightly different language in Daito-ryu Aikido Jujutsu. It is a arm takedown, right? And there's many versions of it in many different martial arts, both Jiu-Jitsu based as well as Chinese, as well as Malaysian. It's a common arm takedown. When you're training as an individual, though, moving your body through different frames and themes, one of the things that you start with kind of empty hand is how do you transmit the power coming up from the ground through your legs and your middle and expressing it out your hands. Very similar to the theme I've been showing over the last week or so. As you saw the quick short yesterday where we did the movement with the bellhop. So in this case, we'll look at kind of each segment, how there's different ways to train it empty-handed. And then as you start to add in different implements of a couple different sizes of medicine ball and then a couple different sizes of heavier kettlebells. And how does that start to impact how you train? Ideally, the power generation is the same. How cleanly you can generate it will be impacted by the amount of load you're working against. And then how strengthened your frame is to transmit the power to deal with the load. So these are all kind of things that take precedence as you're building your body up to express strength. So enough talking about that. Let's start to look at what we want to go through. This is actually the official dance of a small village in Eastern Europe. Okay, no, it's not. You got to move around a bit, shake the joints out. And then I usually start with just big movements of opening and closing on the vertical plane. I'll slow it down then to start really feeling the body connections, making sure that I'm driving the power from my connection to the ground, from my feet, up through my legs, into my trunk, from my middle, out the hands. I want to use as little strength from the arms and shoulders as possible, really focusing on the force from the ground. Then I'll start working on a more explosive type of movement so that I'm really slamming my middle into the floor and letting that rebound of my middle off the floor transmit up my legs and out my hands. Then I start with a lightweight kettlebell, just the 10-pounder, just to kind of go through the same sort of movement plane. And that weight, with the connections I have, it's pretty easy. When I add the 40-pounder, though, and this is the first time I've moved with it, it's harder. And you can see where more of the load starts to get carried on the frame. That's okay. It's a starting point. And as I get used to it, it starts to get a little bit easier to move. Now, the 55-pound kettlebell, I mean, that's what I've been working with as my swing weight anyway. And it's not that heavy, and you can see it transmits pretty cleanly through the frame. But when I start with the 100-pounder, and this is the first time I've swung this sucker, I generally have to get a lot more force behind it, and I really have to make sure that the frame integrity is able to withstand the load. So there we have it. What I'll try and do is sprinkle throughout the day a number of different exercises. And as we dig into this, we'll look at the next themes. So we've got all the way up through Ikkyoku within the Taikyoku Kuzushi. So Ikkyoku, Nikkyoku, Sankyoku, Yankyoku, Gokyoku. So 5 themes, and there's fundamental movements within each. So we looked at the up and down vertical plane movement today. And I will either pick a theme or I'll take either empty-handed or smaller weight and just go through all 5. Particularly on days after that are the recovery days after a heavy session. I want to let the frame really recover from the workload. And so I stay lightweight and really just working on body connection. And can I continue to express the power of the ground up through my frame and out my hands? You'll hear that theme a lot, and there's a reason for it. But yeah, that's the fundamental. So then the next toys arriving this week are going to be the 2 32 kilogram or 70 pounders. So I am itching to see how we do Dan John's armor builder set with that series. So looking forward to it, and we'll be back to dig into that one next time. All right, take care.